The stars outside shimmered like a sea of frozen fire. Captain Elias Rain stood on the main deck of the Terran Union's most advanced diplomatic vessel, Concord, watching the alien space station grow larger on the VIEWSCR. It looked like a floating city made of crystal and mist. Long towers curved like vines, glowing softly with blue and violet light. Around it, a dozen smaller stations moved in quiet patterns like moons orbiting a living planet. This was Namariskith, the capital of the Zeolari Dominiona, mysterious alien empire that had never allowed humans inside their space before. Elias adjusted his collar. His formal uniform itched slightly, but he didn't show it. As a former war hero and now a diplomat, he had faced worse than itchy clothes. Today he wasn't here as a soldier. He was here to make peace. Behind him, his second-in-command, Lieutenant. Maris spoke with quiet tension. Captain, last chance to turn around. The Zeolari haven't sent clear instructions. No escort ships, no transmissions, nothing. Elias smiled slightly. That's just how they are. Mysterious. Silent, but they invited us. That means something. Maris looked uncertain. Or it's a trap, then I'll be the bait, Elias said, stepping forward. Open the airlock. I'll go in alone. The shuttle ride to the station was silent. No music, no voices, just the soft hum of engines in Elias's thoughts. He replayed the briefing again in his mind. The Zeolari were powerful, ancient. Their ships could bend light and sound. Their people spoke in ways that bent reality itself through soundless voices that echoed directly in the mind. Humanity had only caught glimpses of them during brief, distant encounters. And now, for the first time, they'd invited one human to speak directly with their queen. The docking process was smooth. Too smooth. The moment his shuttle touched the platform, Elias felt something strange. A low vibration, not in his ears, but in his mind, as if the very air was watching him. The hatch opened, and he stepped out. There were no guards, no guides. Only silence and soft light. The floor was smooth like glass, but it shimmered with movement beneath the surface, like water flowing under ice. Then he heard it. A voice, but not with his ears. Welcome, Elias Rain. It was calm, musical, female. It echoed inside his skull like a song remembered from a dream. He looked around, startled. Who's there? Come. He followed the feeling rather than the sound. The corridors twisted, curved, and opened on their own, like they knew where he needed to go. Soft lights led the way, floating like fireflies. Finally, he entered a vast chamber. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The ceiling stretched into the stars, open and infinite, though he knew they were still inside the station. At the center stood a throne that seemed made of living crystal, shifting and changing colors like sunlight through a prism, and upon it sat Queen Serial. She wasn't like the rumors described. No tentacles, no hard exoskeleton, no monstrous features. She was tall, graceful, and glowing with a soft silver light. Her body shimmered like starlight on water, and her eyes, large, ancient, and full of quiet sorrow, watched him without blinking. Elias didn't speak at first. Neither did she. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. In his mind, emotions touched him: curiosity, warmth, uncertainty. Then her voice came again, but softer this time. Human, you came alone. He nodded. That was your request? You are not afraid? Elias met her gaze. I've seen war. I've lost friends. I've faced things that tore ships in half with a thought. But you offered peace. That's worth the risk. A pause. Her head tilted slightly. Then came the words that would change his life forever. Human, will you be my king? Elias blinked. The question echoed through his entire body. It didn't feel like a joke or a game. It felt real, ancient, binding. What? The queen stood slowly. Her movements were smooth like silk in water. She stepped down from her throne, each footstep, leaving ripples of light on the floor. My people are fracturing. Fading, we have lived too long in silence. We've forgotten how to grow. You're kind. You burn with passion, with pain, with will. She stepped closer, only a few feet. From him now, her presence felt like standing at the edge of a star. I do not seek a puppet, nor a pet. I seek balance, change, unity. Elias struggled to process it. You want me to rule your empire? Not rule. Stand beside me, not to command, but to walk the future with me, as an equal, as my king. The silence in the chamber deepened. Time seemed to pause. Elias shook his head slightly, trying to steady his thoughts. Why me? Because you are not afraid to stand alone. You came not to conquer, but to understand. And because when I look into your mind, I see the flame that could reignite a dying world. He laughed softly, a little bitter. I'm just a man, not a hero, not a legend. That is why you are worthy. Suddenly, the lights in the room dimmed. A pulse of energy rushed through the walls. Serial's expression changed, calm but sharper. They know I have made the offer. Not all will accept it. There will be resistance. Elias narrowed his eyes. Then why risk it? Voice dropped to a whisper. Because without risk, there is no hope. Without change, we die in silence. He took a step back. His heart was racing. His mind was spinning. But deep inside, something stirred a part of him that remembered why he joined the fleet. Why he left Earth behind. He looked up at her glowing. Form. You've chosen a strange way to start an alliance. Serial tilted her head again. Strange to you, natural to us. To share power is to share soul. Elias exhaled slowly. I'm not saying yes. Not yet. I would not respect you if you did. She stepped back and gestured toward the chamber. Stay, learn, speak with my people, walk our world, then decide. As she turned to leave, her voice reached him once more, soft as a breeze in a dream. But know this, Elias Rain, the moment you stepped into this place, you became part of our future. And then she was gone. Elias stood alone in the vast hall, surrounded by light and silence. The whisper still echoed in his mind. Will you be my king? Captain Elias Rain had always believed himself to be strong, calm, unshakable. But now, as he stood in the living halls of a space station made of light and crystal, after receiving a proposal from a glowing alien queen, his thoughts spun like a ship lost in a storm. He walked the corridors in silence. There were no guards, no guides. The station moved on its own. Walls shifted, paths opened. The floor pulsed gently under his boots. It was alive, not with flesh, but with energy, memory, and purpose. Every so often a whisper passed through his mind, not words but feelings, curiosity, respect, watchfulness. It felt like the station was observing him. Judging him, Elias had been given his own chamber, though the word room didn't do it justice. It was a circular space with a dome-like ceiling, showing the stars outside. The walls glowed a gentle blue. Strange vines of silver light grew across the ceiling, reacting to his presence. And yet, he couldn't rest. He sat on a bench made of warm crystal, rubbing his hands together. Queen Serial's words echoed in his mind. Will you be my king? It didn't sound like a trap. It didn't feel like a trick. But it had to be more than it seemed. A soft chime rang through the room. A door opened on its own. A figure stepped. Inside, it was not the queen. It was a Zealar Melitol, thin and glowing a pale gold. His eyes shimmered with moving light, and his steps were silent. I am Valoran, herald of the Mind Spires, the alien said. Speaking without a mouth, the voice entered Ilias's head clearly. I have been asked to guide you through our world, if you wish it. Ilias stood slowly. Guide me? Why? Valoran tilted his head slightly. Because if you are to stand beside the queen, you must understand what she is trying to save. Ilias raised an eyebrow. You speak as if you support her. The Zealaria's glow dimmed slightly. Not all of us do. But I have seen enough death to know that peace is worth exploring even with something as unpredictable as your. Kind Elias gave a short laugh. Unpredictable is fair. Lead the way. They moved through the station together. Elias saw more than just strange architecture. He saw life. Gardens that floated in the air. Creatures that hummed songs as they pollinated glowing plants. Children who hovered above the ground, laughing with voices that sang into the stone, but he also saw cracks, walls that pulsed irregularly, statues shattered and left untouched, rooms filled with silence that felt like sorrow. Valoran spoke softly as they walked. Our people are old, older than your stars. We were once united in thought and spirit, but over time we divided. Sought purity. Others sought change. Elias looked around. And the queen? She seeks balance. A new way forward. Not through control, but through merging. She believes your kind holds what we've forgotten. Elias frowned. And what's that? Valoran paused. Emotion, drive, chaos, and purpose. They entered a vast chamber filled with floating mirrors, but they weren't mirrors. They were memories. Scenes from the Zealari's past. One showed a planet burning, another showed a fleet vanishing in silence, and another showed a young Serial, standing before a crowd of light. Speaking with fire in her voice, she became queen not by birth, Valoran said, but by choice. She saved us from extinction once, but now her ideas threaten to divide us again. Elias watched the memory of Serial looking into the sky, alone. She doesn't seem afraid. No, Valoran said, but she is. Tired. We all are. We're the first outsider to stand inside our core. She chose you, Elias Rain, but others will not accept that choice. As they left the chamber, the station trembled, just slightly. Like a distant thunder, Valoran's glow darkened. What was that? Elias asked. Descent. Later that cycle, Elias was summoned to a hall of voices. It was a council room, but not like any human council. Instead of chairs, there were orbs of floating light. Each orb represented a mind, a Zealari, leader, elder, or thinker. Dozens of them floated silently, watching, and at the center, once again, stood Queen Serial. She looked at Elias, her expression unreadable. They wish to question you. Elias stepped forward, then let them. The air shimmered as the orbs pulsed. Thoughts filled the room like soundless thunder. You are unstable. You are short-lived. You are violent. You cannot guide our queen. Each statement struck like a blade. Elias stayed calm. You're not wrong. Humanity is all those things. We've made mistakes, big ones, but we learn, grow. And we fight not just with weapons, but with hope. The orbs quieted, and pulsed again. Hope is not enough. Elias nodded. You're right again, but hope is where everything begins. Serial stepped forward then, her light brighter than before. I did not choose him because he is perfect. I chose him because he is human, because he burns, because he still dares to believe in things we've forgotten. The council room dimmed. The orbs faded. The meeting was over. Serial walked with Elias down a quiet corridor afterward. You didn't have to defend me, she said softly. I wasn't defending you, Elias replied. I was defending your choice. They stopped at a balcony overlooking a sea of stars. Serial looked out. I remember when I first touched your world's signals. Your music, your chaos, your wars, your laughter. I had never heard anything so alive. Elias watched her. Then why not send ambassadors? Why wait so long? She looked at him. Because your people were still growing, still dangerous. I watched you like one watches a storm, beautiful but untouchable. And now, she turned to him. Now I wonder if that storm is the only thing that can bring rain to our dying world? Elias leaned on the edge of the railing. I don't. No, if I can be what you need, he said honestly. Serial stepped beside him. I do not need perfection. I need someone who chooses, not obeys. Someone who feels, not calculates. Someone who says no when no must be said. Elias looked. At her? Then maybe I'm your storm. Serial smiled for the first time, but then, across the stars. A sudden burst of light flashed. Red, violent. An explosion. Elias snapped to alert. What was that? Serial's smile faded. A warning. Some of my people would rather see our world fall than see it changed. Elias's fists clenched. Terrorists? Extremists? And perhaps more. She turned to him. Now you must decide, Elias Rain. Will you walk away from this? Or stand beside me, knowing the path may be filled with danger and betrayal? Elias looked at the stars, at her hand. For the first time, the idea didn't feel impossible. I'll stay, he said quietly, but not because I want power. Because I want a crown. Serial nodded. Then why? Because someone has to believe it's possible. Elias Rain stood at the edge of the Zeolari starlight balcony, watching the distant flickers of red fade into darkness. The explosion from earlier still haunted his mind. He had seen war, but this felt different. This was not just a battle, it was a message. Someone out there wanted to tear apart everything Queen Serial was trying to build. And now, Elias was part of it. Back inside the palace chamber, Queen Serial stood in the center of a circle of light. Her glowing robes shimmered with energy, but her face was troubled. Around her, high-ranking Zeolari nobles gathered, their bodies made of shifting light and form. They whispered without sound, minds linking through pulses of energy. Valorn stood beside Elias, his golden glow dimmer than usual. They will not all support her now, he said quietly. They will see the attack as proof that humans bring danger. Ilias's voice was low. Then let them see me stand. Serial raised her hand and silence fell over the room. This act of violence, she said, her voice reaching. Every corner was not done by strangers. It was born from fear, our own fear, but we cannot let fear decide our future. The nobles pulsed softly in disagreement. Some backed away. Some simply vanished. Elias stepped forward. I know I am. Not one of you. I know I don't belong here by your traditions, he said. But your queen chose me, and I stand by her not to rule, but to protect what she's building. A few Zeolari tilted in interest.
Oh.
One floated forward, tall, silver blue, with sharp eyes. I am Terex of the Inner Vow, he said directly into Ilias's mind. I speak for those who value order. You speak of peace, but your kind is born of war. Why should we let your storm enter our garden? Elias met his gaze. Because your garden is dying. Pretending it isn't won't save it. A pause. A long silence. Then Terex vanished without another word. Queen Serial looked at Elias. In her eyes was a flicker of something rare hope. Maybe. Or trust. But as the meeting ended and the nobles dispersed, Valorant approached Elias with a troubled expression. Walk with me, he said. They moved through the lower halls of the palace. Here, the lights were dimmer. The walls felt colder. We have a problem, Valorant said. Spy has breached the Mindspire network. Someone is leaking council decisions to outsiders. Dangerous ones. Elias narrowed his eyes. You think it's one of the Queen's own people? I believe it's worse than that, Valorant said. I believe it's someone within her. Inner circle. Elias stopped walking. You're telling me the Queen might be surrounded by traitors? I'm telling you, Valorant said slowly, that her choice of you as consort has split this empire more deeply than we expected. Some believe you are a symbol of hope. Others see you as the first sign of collapse. And if I leave, Elias asked, they will take it as weakness. Proof that she chose wrong. Elias rubbed his jaw. Then we need to find the traitor. Before they move again, Valorant nodded. Agreed, but you must be careful. The one behind this. They are hiding behind ancient laws, old power, and they will not hesitate to kill. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He stood at the edge of the observation dome watching the stars. The Zeolari home systems twinkled like jewels in an ocean of black. His mind was restless. He kept thinking about Earth, about the Terran Union, about how far he was from home and how strange it felt that he didn't miss it as much as he thought he would. He felt something move behind him, a whisper. A flicker of light. He turned quickly. Figures stood in the shadows. It was Terex, but his glow was no longer silver blue. It was deep red, burning softly like an ember. "You speak bravely," Terex said, stepping forward, "but you do not understand what your presence has done." Elias remained calm. "Enlighten me." Terex's voice darkened. "You have divided us. The queen was once untouchable, perfect. Now she speaks of change, love, humans. You made her weak." Elias stepped forward too. "Or stronger than she's ever been." Terex laughed softly. "You think this is a story? A fairy tale ending? This is an empire, human. It does not survive on feelings. It survives on control." Then his hands lit up with energy, dark, raw, and pulsing. "I did not cause the explosion," Terex said, "but I gave the order." Elias tensed. "So you admit it?" "I do. I will stop you before you infect what remains of our unity." Terex lunged. Elias barely dodged in time. The bolt of energy slammed into the wall behind him, sending crystal shards flying. He rolled to cover, grabbing a Zealari staff from the wall meant for ceremony, not combat. But he'd make it work. Terex moved fast, but Elias had fought faster. The staff clashed with a glowing blade. Sparks flew. "You're just proving the queen's point," Elias said through gritted teeth. "You're afraid." "I am wise," Terex snarled. They fought through the hallway, energy flashing around. The station groaned as systems reacted. Alarms whispered through the walls. Suddenly, more footsteps approached. Guards, but not serials. Guards. Derrick's Elias was surrounded. He raised his staff, blood dripping from a cut on his cheek. "Well, looks like a real welcome party." Before the guards moved, a blast of silver light exploded into the room. Sir Yell. She appeared like a comet of light, her presence freezing everyone in place. "Enough." Her voice rang like thunder. "You dare raise a hand against my choice?" Terex stood tall. "Your choice is destroying our unity. You think unity means silence?" She snapped. "It means trust. It means faith. You have none." Elias leaned on the staff, breathing hard. Terex turned to her, defiant. "Then kill me. Prove to them that you are no different from the tyrants of old." Serial's glow dimmed. "No," she said. "That would make me like you." She turned to her guards. "Arrest him. Place him in the deep stasis vault." The guards hesitated. She added coldly, "Now." They obeyed. Terex was dragged away, still staring at Elias. "This isn't overhuman, I know," Elias said. "It's just the beginning." Later in the queen's private chamber, Elias sat beside her in silence. She was quiet, her face lit only by the stars beyond. "You saved me," he said quietly. She shook her head. "You stood your ground." "I only finished what you started." He looked at her. "I meant what I said earlier. I'm not leaving." She smiled slightly. "Even if the throne turns to fire." He nodded. "Especially then." For a moment silence fell between them. Then she spoke, voice soft as a whisper. "There is something I haven't told you." He turned toward her. "There is a prophecy, an ancient one. It speaks of a foreign spark that will light the last flame. A storm-born voice that will either bring rebirth or end us." Elias frowned. "You think that's me?" "No, it is," she said. Elias stood. "And we better make sure I bring fire, not ashes." She reached for his hand, and this time he took it. The days after Terex's arrest passed like a slow-burning fuse. The Zealari Empire was shaken. Some called Elias Reign a savior. Others whispered he was a disease one that had already begun to infect the heart of the queen herself. The council was split. Debates echoed across the stars. Some systems refused communication. Others declared loyalty to Queen Serial more openly than ever before. The pressure built like a storm about to break. And Elias? He trained. Every day he woke early and practiced in the palace's quiet garden chambers. The Zealari didn't have weapons in the human sense, but their energy-focused tools could be repurposed. Queen Serial had given him access to what? Little human-based tech they had retrieved over the years, mostly for study. Now, Elias was turning that knowledge into action. With Valoran guiding him, Elias learned to combine Zealary staff work with Terran reflex, sword and light, precision and instinct. You fight like someone who has already lost something, Valorant observed one day. As Elias finished a sweat-soaked session, Elias didn't answer right away. "I've lost too many somethings," he replied finally. "I'm just making sure I don't lose this." That evening, Queen Serial called a private council, just 5 beings in total, herself, Elias, Valoran, High Engineer Firel, and Archivist Mila. They met in the Shadow Spire, a deep secret chamber beneath the palace, only accessible through the Queen's unique biosignature. Here, the walls were black crystal, silent, watchful. Serial opened the meeting with a quiet voice. "There's no more time to delay. But Tarek's loyalists have begun mobilizing in the outer rings. 3 colonies have gone silent. A fleet is gathering near the Dead Moons. We are close to civil war." Valoran nodded. "And with Tarek's imprisoned, his supporters now paint him as a martyr." Firel, the engineer with a body like blue fire, added, "Some are even calling for Elias to be turned over." As a gesture of unity, Elias gave a dry laugh. "Let me guess. That's the nice way of saying they want me executed." Serial didn't laugh. "It's worse. They say, if I keep you by my side, I will lose the right to rule." Archivist Mila, her voice soft and slow, looked at the Queen. "You have one path left, my Queen. You must show the Empire that this human is not a weakness, but our only chance." Serial turned to Elias. "We have one secret left, something hidden since the ancient wars, something only a bonded pair, like a queen and her chosen can activate." Elias raised an eyebrow. "A weapon?" Serial nodded slowly. "A ship, but not like anything your kind or mine has ever seen." Firel stepped forward and projected a hologram. It was massive, shaped like a serpent made of stars, with rings of energy surrounding its body. We call it the Ilarion. It was built by the first rulers before our minds unified, half organic, half light, designed to protect the throne from extinction, Valoran added. "It responds to dual wills, emotion and logic, strength and compassion. That's why it has never been activated until now." Elias stared at the image. "Let me guess. You want me to pilot this with you?" Serial stepped closer. "Not just pilot it, you must become part of it. If we appear before the galaxy and the Illyrian, they will have no choice but to listen. And if they don't, then we fly into the heart of the storm and hold it. Together ourselves." Elias let out a long breath. "How serious?" Serial met his eyes. "Would I have asked you to be my king if I wasn't?" The journey to the Illyrian's resting place took them to the heart of a dead star, wrapped in the folds of a collapsed sun, hidden from sensors, surrounded by ancient shielding fields. The ship waited. It wasn't shaped like a Terran battleship. It was alive. Its surface moved gently, like a sleeping creature. Patterns of memory flowed across its skin. It pulsed with quiet awareness. As if it had been dreaming for centuries, Elias and Serial entered the ship together, their minds linked. Through the crown, crystal placed gently in Elias's palm. As soon as he stepped aboard, Elias felt it. A whisper, "Are you flame?" The voice wasn't a language. It was raw emotion, placed directly into his thoughts. He didn't answer. He simply stepped forward. Hand in Serial's, the ship opened. Inside, it was beyond strange. Light bent around them. Hallways formed and dissolved. Walls breathed softly. Symbols appeared before their eyes, neither Zealari nor human, something older. At the core was a chamber of mirrors and stars. Here, they stood together. Serial placed her hand on a floating crystal. Elias did the same. The Illyrian reacted. Energy swirled. The room lit up with a flash of silver and gold. The stars outside warped. Systems came online that hadn't been touched in thousands of years, and then it spoke. Bond accepted. King. And Queen of Breath and Spark, speak your will. Serial closed her eyes. We seek unity, hope, power with purpose. Elias opened his mouth, unsure at first. Then he spoke clearly. We seek a future where no one rules through fear. Ilarion pulsed with approval, then rise and be seen. 3 days later, the galaxy watched. The Ilarion emerged from the folds of space above the Council World Neutral Territory, where every Zealari colony sent a voice. Its arrival was silent, but the signal it sent was undeniable. Elias and Serial stood atop its bridge, visible to all. Beside them, floating projectors broadcast their forms across every colony. Every station, every world, still connected. Queen Serial raised her hand. I come not to rule through force, but to offer a future none of you dared imagine. One where we are not trapped in our old thoughts. One where we evolve. She gestured to Elias. This human stands with me. He's not a weapon. He's a mirror of what we've lost and what we still might become. Elias stepped forward. You fear? Me, because I come from chaos, from noise, from mistakes. But humanity survived not because we were perfect, but because we never stopped trying. That's what I offer, not a throne, but the right to fight for a better path. The response was silence. Then across the galaxy, systems began blinking. Online, by one messages arrived. We support the Queen. Let the new age begin. We follow the spark. But not all of them. A final signal came from the dead moons. Teryx's supporters. His last loyal fleet. We do not accept this false king. You bring war, not peace. Serial turned to Elias. Then we must show them peace. With strength, Elias smiled. Let's show them what a storm can do. The stars trembled. Elias Rain stood on the bridge of the Ilarion, staring at the growing shadow in the distance. The fleet of Teryx's loyalists had arrived. Hundreds of warships formed a wall across the black, each pulsing with red energy. Ready to fire? Beside him, Queen Serial's glowing presence pulsed with calm power. Her hand gently touched a command node, and the Ilarion responded with a soft hum. This is it, she said. Elias nodded. Let's make it count. The ship's core pulsed beneath their feet. Energy flowing through the Ilarion wasn't like normal tech. It didn't launch missiles or fire lasers. It spoke. It adapted. It became what its pilots needed. And Elias, he needed to protect the only future he had left. A voice crackled through the void. Queen Serial, human, you stand in defiance of the true path. Surrender the throne and the false king, and no blood will be spilled. It was Admiral Zelterix's most loyal war commander. His ship, the Veronexus, was the largest of the fleet. Bristling with energy cannons and dark metal plating, it looked more like a predator than a vessel. Serial replied in a clear voice broadcast across all channels. Do you call it surrender? I call it evolution. Zale's voice turned cold. Then, you've chosen death. The enemy fleet charged. Inside the Ilarion, Elias closed his eyes. He didn't need a control panel. He didn't need buttons or wires. The ship responded to his thoughts, his feelings. He thought of Earth, of burning skies, cities torn apart by wars and greed, but also of resilience, of people rebuilding, of hands reaching out after disaster. He thought of Serial, of her hope, her strength, her trust in him. The Ilarion roared to life. It moved faster than light, weaving between enemy fire, bending space around its wings. Enemy beams passed through its shields like water hitting glass load, redirected, absorbed, then it struck not. With weapons, but with will. The Ilarion sent out a pulse, pure energy, not deadly, but stunning. Several enemy ships froze in place, systems confused by the sudden surge of unfamiliar power. Serial reached out her mind. Surrender. No more need to die. Some ships paused, but others advanced. The Veronexus fired. A blast of red tore through the sky and hit the Ilarion shields. The ship shuddered. Sparks danced across the floor. Elias gritted his teeth. They won't stop. No, Serial said. But we can. Inside the Ilarion's heart was a final core untouched. For millennia, the Starseed, a device left by the first ones, a creation engine. With it, they could reshape entire systems. It was too dangerous to use in peace, but now they had no choice. Elias and Serial stood before it, hands pressed together. If we activate this, Serial said, we'll burn so bright they'll have to see. Then let's become a fire they'll never forget, Elias replied. Together, they touched the starseed. The Illyrians screamed across the battlefield. All ships paused. A beam of white gold light rose from the Illyrian, slicing through space like a sword of sun. It didn't destroy, it transformed. The space around the fleet shifted. Red energy turned to silver. Weapons powered down. The eye systems are a boot. The starseed didn't kill. It purified. And those who still fought. They tried. The Varenixes charged one last time. Elias focused everything he had. His thoughts, his memories, his pain. His hope. The Illyrian became a storm of energy. The blast that followed didn't shatter the enemy ship. It took its rage and turned it to silence. When the light faded, only one ship remained, the Illyrian, floating. Alive, victorious. Back on the council world, the silence broke. Hundreds of colonies sent their reply. We accept. We unite. Follow the fire. Serial stood before them, a symbol of grace. And beside her, Elias Rain. Once a soldier, now a symbol of something more hope. Weeks passed. The Zealari Empire changed. Not quickly, not perfectly. But change began. Old titles were rewritten. New councils formed, with humans and Zealari sitting side by side. A bridge had been built. And the queen? She ruled not alone, but with a king beside her, one who never asked for power, but earned it. On the final day of the coronation festival, Elias walked through the Garden of Stars, wearing no armor, no crown. He stood alone under the twin moons. Serial. Found him there. You should be at the celebration, she said. He looked up at the sky. I was just thinking, he replied. A year ago, I was fighting in dust and blood. Now I'm standing in paradise. Is it paradise to you? She asked softly. He turned to her. It is because you're in it. Serial smiled. You changed us, she said. You changed me, Elias whispered. She reached for his hand, and with an ethereal whisper, she said it again. Human, will you be my king? Elias looked into her eyes, and this time, without hesitation, he answered, I already am.